Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a cafe au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 208th episode of the Simple Sophisticate, and today's episode is all about creating an all-around healthy life. That seems like quite the undertaking, you may be saying, and that is very true, which is why the book that I recently brought home, and I shared a glimpse of it on my Instagram feed last week, is the all-encompassing resource I would encourage you to pick up. But I went through this book and I picked out 19 things that I think if we attempted to do them, we would be well ahead of where we are right now. And there are so many more than just those 19. So I'm going to share with you things to let go of and things to welcome into your life from Dr. Frank Lipman's book, How to Be Well, The 6 Keys to a Happy and Healthy Life. Now, those 6 keys are the pillars of how to live well, but throughout the entire book, there are many things that we can do. And some of them we're going to find out, oh, I already do that. And it's a pat on the back. And there are other things you may think, oh, I've heard about it, but maybe I should try it. Or there may be brand new things you never considered. And perhaps just being introduced to it will pique your interest to check out more of the links that I share on the show notes, or even check out the book at your library or pick it up for yourself and keep it at home as a resource. So that's what we're talking about today in the episode. But before I get to that, today's Petite Please here is the simplest little food item that I enjoy. It's a recipe, but it's basically just 3 ingredients. Okay, 4 if you include the salt that I add for seasoning. And I enjoy it almost every morning now with my breakfast. I've added it to my steel oats, and I'm excited to share it with you. I have a feeling that some of you already do this, but some of you may not, and some of you may have been like me and said, no way would I ever eat this. And now I'm eating it, and I love it, and I can't imagine not. So that's the end of today's episode, but let's get into today's topic at hand, how to create an all-around healthy life. I want to begin with a simple quote from the author of the book, How to Be Well, Dr. Frank Lipman. He states, "Health is the outcome of the small choices you make on a daily basis." The pillars of a healthy life have been enumerated by many an expert, as we all know. But it was in Frank Lipman's book, How to Be Well, that delineated and described them in such a way that found me nodding my head in agreement throughout the entire book. The concept of living simply luxuriously adheres beautifully with Lipman's 6 pillars. Here they are: what we eat, the sleep we get, the movement we engage in, how we protect and prevent, finding regular time to unwind, and quality opportunities to connect. All of these contribute to build a life of good health beyond our physical needs, but as well include our mental and social lives as well. At the core, it is about knowledge and understanding. And most importantly, it is about understanding the propaganda that swirls around us, claiming to offer healthy hacks, but in reality prevent us from truly living a life of true wellness. So, first I want to begin by sharing 8 things that, based on his book, are ideas, products, or beliefs we should let go of if we want to live well. First thing, counting calories. It's not necessary. And I've included 3 episodes or posts that I have written in the past that dive deep into this concept that he introduces. But it really is about this whole concept of quality over quantity. If you're eating real whole food, if you're eating in-season food, you don't need a lot of it. You are going to be satiated. And that's the key, to know what your body needs to get it back on track. And then focus on enjoying your food. And you can do that. You can absolutely do it. So that's number 1. Let go of counting calories. Number 2, here's the dirty word for the day: sugar. from altering our hormones so that our body is not registering hunger correctly, which then makes you eat more, as well as increasing your cravings for sugar. Lippmann calls this bad word, sugar, quote, public enemy number one. Now, he breaks it all down in over 3 pages, but in essence, processed foods, over 80,000 of the items that are on grocery shelves are processed foods. So 80,000 processed foods. Of those, 58 of them contain added sugar. And that includes items you would never have thought to contain this ingredient, such as granola, ketchup, pickles, baked beans, protein bars. And as I said, this book is the resource, and I'm not going to go into detail with this one because I could go into detail with all of these, and this will be a 2 or 3 hour show. But it is something to be aware of and to be cognizant of. And it does take time to wean ourselves off of it. And we can splurge every once in a while. But the thing is knowing whether or not you know what you're eating. And that's important. Now, the natural sugars from our fruit and our vegetables, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the added sugar. So that's number 2. Let that go. 3, similar vein, processed foods. Lippmann compares processed foods to malware on our computer that jumbles the information in order to confuse us. He recognizes that most of us know that processed foods are bad, but we can be bamboozled into eating them nevertheless. When I read Michael Moss's book, Salt, Sugar, Fat, How the Food Giants Hooked Us, this was more than a few years ago, but when I read this, I was mortified by their antics, the bliss point that they tried to achieve to make us feel satiated, almost satiated, but not quite, but love what we're eating so that we want more, and to never get us to that point of fullness. And so I read it, I was initially upset, but then I felt empowered to eat smarter and not fall prey. And I'll provide a link to that book on today's show notes. That's number 3, let go of processed foods. Number 4, prioritizing exercise over sleep. Believe it or not, it's more important to get good sleep than it is to go to your exercise routine. So what I mean by that is, say your schedule is absurd and you're thinking about cutting your sleep short, so to 4 or 5 hours, maybe fewer than that, so that you can wake up early and go to your exercise routine because you think that's healthier. I've been there. I've done that. And I can say from my own experience, to reiterate what he says, sleep should take the priority. Sleep should take the priority. Here's his quote: "Sleep is not a luxury. It is an absolutely essential act of daily maintenance, and it is your ally in keeping your brain sharp and youthful." On top of this idea, recent studies have come out, and I've shared a few times on the blog and the podcast, that it's actually what we eat rather than the exercise we do that has more power over our health. Now, it doesn't mean we shouldn't be physical. We absolutely should. We're talking about when we're in dire straits, that we need to think about our priorities when we have to choose. Hopefully we don't have to, but when we do, choose sleep over exercise. That's number 4. Number 5, remove toxic cleaning products. We hear the word toxic, and of course we think, I know not to use da-da-da-da. Hey, I'm guilty of it too. Here's some things to think about. Forget most labels, such as green, natural, or with essential oils, as they often do not adhere to U.S. federal law when it comes to hazardous components. As well, antibacterial products for your hands and household use can contribute to drug-resistant bacteria. And Lippmann suggests, in lieu of fabric softeners or dryer sheets, try using a little vinegar in the rinse cycle. So just read the label. I think this is one of those things about being a savvy shopper, and you may have to pay a little bit more initially, and then you obviously want to phase out what you already have because you don't want to waste, but at the same time, it's up to you if you just want to toss it all together. Be careful where you toss it as well, but be thinking about what you use in your home. It may look clean, but is it healthy? So that's something I'm working on as well. I can't say that I'm perfect on that one, and perfect isn't the goal. It's awareness and doing better than we were doing yesterday. So that's number 5. Remove toxic cleaning products. Number 6, similar idea here. Grooming products with toxic chemicals. Get rid of them. I'm going to include a link to a website that includes a never list, and this is what he shares in his book. It's from beautycounter.com, and their never list, which is trademarked, is going to help you determine which products to look for on the beauty items you buy, and if they have these items, to not purchase that product. And they also have a downloadable PDF that you can print out that's pocket size and carry in your wallet. So wherever you're shopping, you can quickly double check. It's really not that long, which is nice, but at the same time, these words are mouthfuls, and just having that list will be a good cheat sheet. So that's number 6, grooming products with toxic chemicals, get rid of them. Number 7, multitasking. I've written about this before. There is not a real benefit in multitasking. If you want to get something done, sure, go ahead. But if you want to get it done well, stop multitasking and focus on one thing at a time. Not only will the outcome be better and you won't have to go back and repeat it perhaps, but it'll also bring you more pleasure, and it'll force you to make decisions about what you see as a priority. I provide a link to the post that I wrote a few years ago about the 4 reasons to stop multitasking, and you can find it on the show notes. That's number 7. And the last thing to let go of, number 8, is chasing bliss. Instead, pursue a purpose. While it will take time for all of us to figure out what gives our lives purpose, as you come to better understand yourself, your gifts, the world, etc., choosing to pursue a perpetual state of happiness is a fool's pursuit. In episode 162 of this podcast, I focused on just that concept, shifting our pursuit from seeking happiness to cultivating contentment. So if that is a topic you're interested in, I encourage you to check out that episode. All right, so those are the 8 things to let go of. And now I want to move on to a far longer list, and that is ideas to embrace. Let's get started. The first thing is to embrace fat. Woo! Healthy fat, that is. Fat does the opposite of added sugar. It is something we need in our diet, and it gives us stable, longer-lasting energy, controls our hunger, and helps to regulate our metabolism. Lippmann's rule of thumb when it comes to fats is, if it comes from nature, it's probably healthy. And if it's made in a factory, be it a feedlot or a process plant, it's probably not. Again, he has a lot of specifics and details on this, and I encourage you to check them out. So that's number 1. Welcome the fat. Butter. 2, I don't know. So I could go off on butter. Love it. Anyway, 2, become a savvy food shopper. Just as in life, it is important to be a critical thinker about the information we receive, this also encompasses the food we purchase. First and foremost, eat whole foods when possible. When fresh produce, local meats, and dairy are available, support your local farmers and ranchers. That way you know how your food came to be on your table. Lippmann shares, quote, "We have an industrial food supply that has favored profit over health for so long that it's made disease-causing foods mainstream and health-giving foods fringe." End quote. Now, I don't know about you, but when I read that, that was some serious food for thought. The pun is definitely intended. And so this means that we're going to probably have to work a little bit more, become a little more educated, take a little more time. But once we know where and how and what we're shopping for, we become that savvy shopper and we welcome the healthy foods into our lives. So that's number 2. Number 3, enjoy broth. Lippmann shares in his book, the collagen in broth is gentle yet nourishing, healing and supportive for overworked and damaged digestive systems. As well, broth delivers healthy fats, fat-soluble vitamins, and minerals to our bodies, which counters inflammation and supports the joints and skin, as well as boosts the immune system. I don't know about you, but there's so many health benefits that I list right there. I need to start doing this. I have not done this. I do need to start doing this. And he has a full page of a recipe for how to make your own bone broth in the book. So that might be something you're interested in, but it's also probably something you can find online, or maybe you have something, or maybe you already have one that you use. So just more reason to consider bringing broth into your eating regimen on a regular basis. Number 4, welcome in salt. just not the highly processed table salt. That's what we don't want to bring in. We want to bring in the unrefined salt. It is an essential micronutrient. It plays an important role in our body, helping it to regulate muscle, heart, nervous system, and brain function, as well as blood flow and fluid balance. Littman reassures that so long as you are, quote, eating a clean, whole food diet and you're seasoning your food with salt to taste, your body makes the adjustments to maintain an equilibrium, end quote. Just make sure to eat, as I mentioned, unrefined salt rather than regular table salt or highly processed salt. Now, back in episode 192, I had a conversation with American expat who is living in France and is a cookbook author and has cooking classes, Susan Herman Lomas, and she shares some insight into cooking and eating with salt. One takeaway was season as you go. This is something you don't do at just the end, you do it throughout the entire process of cooking. And there are so many salts out there now, but the key is to start with the basics. Make sure it's unrefined, get some flaky sea salt, get some gray sea salt, and you will be off on a great start. That's number 4. 5, simplify cooking. Now, I have written a handful of posts on this. I've done episodes. I'm even going to be starting my own vodcast on the Simply Luxurious Kitchen, which focuses on seasonal fare to elevate the everyday. There really is no need to complicate cooking. We can if we want to. We're not saying you have to do that. The key is, though, if you're bringing in quality ingredients, if you're cooking with the seasons, if you know how to do the basics with regards to seasoning a flavor with herbs and the aromatics like onions and shallots and garlic, then you can add flavor to your meats, to your vegetables, to your sauces. And if you stick within that wheelhouse, you will be able to create so many uniquely different items from week to week. You'll amaze yourself. I've included 3 different links for you. Why not keep it simple in the kitchen? A very detailed post on how to do just exactly what we're talking about here. I've also included more information about how to create a capsule menu and why that might not be a great idea to simplify the grocery shopping process from week to week. And if you haven't already seen the pilot episode of the Simply Luxurious Kitchen, I encourage you to check it out and check out the whole concept of what this podcast is going to be about. It premieres in September 8th. 2018. I'm so excited. I have 8 episodes coming for you guys, and we're going to be just simplifying this process. I'm not going to introduce you to wildly new recipes, but I am going to show you how to simplify the process and cook with seasonal fare. That's number 5. All right. Number 6, eat the stalks. We're talking about vegetables, so broccoli and cauliflower, for example. Even, Littman suggests, the woody asparagus stalks. These are hard to digest carbohydrates, and they give good bacteria a feast because they nosh on them for a very long time. This is a good thing. Littman shares that the prebiotic benefits include ensuring a thriving microbiome. Munch on these chewy options either raw or cook them along with the rest of the vegetable. I've started doing this with my broccoli. Yeah, definitely the stalk is chewier, so slice them thinner. That's what I'm discovering. I initially chopped them about the same size as the rest of my broccoli, for example, my broccoli florets, and I realized, these are a little more hard to digest as far as chewing. So I'm going to chop these smaller, and it worked. You're going to flavor it with olive oil, salt and pepper, put it in the roasting pan with the rest of the vegetables, cook at about 400 degrees for 20 to 30 minutes, and right there, you're helping out your health. That's number 6. Number 7, go to bed when you are tired. Now, you may initially say, wait a second, my life requires me to do this, that, and the other. This is the thing. What did we say about the things we need to let go of in the list above? We said that we have to prioritize sleep over exercise. We also have to prioritize sleep over other things in our lives because sleep is one of the ultimate foundations of living well. Our brain needs a rest. Our body needs to detoxify. And our sleep cycle, once it's set the way it needs to be with regards to waking up at a certain time and going to bed at a certain time for the region in the world that you live in, we need to listen to it. And if we do, you'll be amazed how you actually don't even need an alarm clock. I always set mine. I always set my alarm clock. The funny thing is, I very rarely ever wake up to it. I wake up automatically. And not even because my dogs are waking up. Sometimes that happens. but because I'm rested. I've gotten my 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Everyone's lifestyle is different, but this is something to maybe try to improve if you're finding that you are pushing through that tired. This is also just a reminder of why jet lag is so brutal, because our sleep cycles are powerful. That's number 7. Number 8, investigate when your sleep goes awry. So we're going to talk about sleep one more time. Often when we are unable to sleep, our mind is going crazy, or even though we're exhausted, we can't go there. It is a sign that something in our lives needs to be addressed, adjusted, or effectively dealt with so that we can move forward. He goes into more detail on this, but this is just a brief reminder that our bodies speak to us, our lives speak to us. We just need to pay attention. We don't always have the answer right away, but we at least have an indication that we need to pay attention to something. So that's number 8. Number 9, follow a strength training program. Since most of us do not work at jobs that require physical exertion, it is important we welcome this healthy stress into our physical bodies regularly, offering protection from disease, as well as enabling our bodies to, quote, meet the demands of and carry the loads of life. Our joints, tendons, ligaments, and muscles, they need to be worked. Strength training helps us to reduce the risks for diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, and enable us to move well. And that is something that I love to do, and I have a feeling you do too. And it's only when it's taken away that we're reminded how fortunate we are when we have been taking care of our bodies. Now, if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you know that in episode 201, I shared in detail my experience of setting up my own strength training routine after having taken some sessions with a personal trainer, and I'll have a link to that on today's show notes. Number 10 is simply move. Any opportunity you have to move, seize it. From the exercise routine you follow to walking to the market, taking the stairs, or getting outside on your lunch break to take a stroll, do so. Movement, even though it may not supersede sleep, it is vital. It is a way to keep our bodies younger and healthier and more mobile. I've included a link to episode 190 because we did an episode focused entirely on staying fit, getting in shape, but also keeping it simple. So that's number 10, move. Number 11 is use a foam roller. Woohoo! Littman recommends using a foam roller 5 to 10 minutes a day to massage our tired muscles and tendons that we have kept quite sedentary throughout the day. Most of us, that is. Of course, everyone's job's a little different. Also, when we use a roller, he says, it helps with our circulation and it kneads our sore muscles, which this also helps increase the oxygen flow to the brain. So overall, I don't see any negatives to welcoming in a foam roller, except for the cost of buying one. But it sounds pretty comfortable and wonderful to me. It's something I've never done, and I think that might be something to check out. Number 12 is to shop at farmers markets when you can. Now, last year I broke down how to make the most of the farmers market, the visit, and to how to approach it. This is also something I asked David Leibovitz when he was on the podcast back in November, and because he goes to the market quite regularly, living in Paris. And I've also talked to Susan Herman Lomas about this, and they both basically suggested the same thing. And I do this too now, is when I go to the farmer's market, first I just do a walk to see what all the different artisans are bringing, all the different farmers have brought. And then I go back and slowly just kind of make my way through what I need and what looks good and what I want to try for that particular season. Anyway, so that's just something to try to do because that allows you to eat more whole foods, also know where your food comes from, and eat seasonally. That's number 12. Number 13, dry brush your entire body. Similar to using a roller, dry brushing your body from head to toe improves circulation, making the strokes with your brush that always run up to your heart. So whether you're brushing from your toes, you're doing your legs, always make the brush strokes up to your heart. And if you're using the brush on your shoulder, then you would bring that brush to your heart. Now, this is a habit every time you take a shower, for example, to do. If you want to just do it every day before you go to bed or before you get up in the morning, before you get dressed, it's also a great way to not only help your circulation, but to improve your body's glow, as dead skin cells are also being removed. This is something that I have done since I read Carol Culturell's book, The French Twist, and it feels amazing. And it is done in 1 or 2 minutes. It feels great, and you're helping your body out. That's number 13. Number 14, become mindful. Being mindful is the opposite of choosing to multitask. When we choose to be mindful, we are choosing to be present, to be self-aware, to respond rather than react. While being mindful is not something we can do once and make it a default that we do without thinking, it is something that requires of us to be entirely present, thus improving the quality of everything we do throughout our days. A few years ago, I wrote a post that shared 11 ways to live more mindfully, and I've included it on today's show notes. If you're curious, you can check it out. So that's number 14, become more mindful. Number 15, say no to overcommitting. One of the benefits of being mindful is that we are aware of what we are capable of and respond in kind rather than by default. Saying no could literally be saying no thank you to invitations, or it could be creating no work zones in your home. There is a huge benefit in letting go of the busy mentality, and part of doing that requires us to say no. But it comes from a place of self-awareness of the life we're trying to create. So that's number 15. Number 16, I love this one, rest. Rest. In episode 139, we talked about this everyday necessity, which is deliberate rest, inspired by a book that was entirely dedicated to what deliberate rest is. I encourage you to check that episode out or tune in. That's episode 139, because resting deliberately doesn't mean you're laying on the sofa, because I know it's just that thought maybe will make some of us feel guilty. There's so many different ways we can rest deliberately that are beneficial to our lives. Number 17, commit random acts of kindness. Kindness in our behavior, in our words, in our expression of sincere appreciation. When we choose to commit random acts of kindness, we experience what Lippmann calls the helper's high. Physically, our bodies do change as serotonin levels rise and cortisol goes down. Cortisol, remember, is released when we are stressed. So our stress is reduced, as well as our blood pressure. That's number 17. Commit random acts of kindness. 18. Learn something new each week. Not only is it exciting and confidence boosting when we learn something we were not aware of previously, we are actually helping our brain out as well. By learning new tasks and information, we are creating new neural pathways, which, quote, can prevent degenerative diseases like dementia. I've included a link to a post from a few years ago that's a 3-part series about the benefits of reading, but it really is about this idea of exploring and gaining new information and what it really does do for our lives beyond what we would expect. That's number 18. And last but not least is number 19, celebrate small victories. Perfection can be a barrier that stands in our way of celebrating along our journey. Lippmann states, quote, this anxious pursuit of perfection can be a hindrance to getting and staying healthy because it denies the reality of nature. Health is a dynamic state, constantly changing and in flux, and it is different for each person. There is no perfect point of guaranteed balance, and striving for it can drive you crazy, end quote. I wanted to end on this point, number 19, to celebrate the small victories, because even though the book that he wrote offers how to live well and be well, we are always on this journey toward refining our lives, improving our lives. We will never reach a point of perfect health and be able to stay there. We must be diligent and regularly applying the knowledge we gain, which perhaps in some instances was reaffirmed today, or apply the new information we discovered that we didn't know about, and continue to learn more about our unique bodies, lives, and selves. The first step in living well and being well is understanding, and once we know how, we can then go about living well so that we can enjoy our lives to the fullest. I have included a post titled Perfectionist versus High Achiever, the difference, if you're interested in diving deeper into separating and pulling away or stepping away from perfectionism. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, this topic about how to be well. It really is multifaceted, and this, again, was just a glimpse into what this book by Dr. Frank Lipman includes and reveals to readers. So I encourage you to check it out if this topic interests you today. You can find all that information on the show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 208. And I'll be right back with this week's Petite Plaisir. This week's Petite Plaisir, as I mentioned, is an addition to my regular breakfast, and it is so simple and so healthy and good for you, as well as very delicious. And some of you maybe already know what I'm talking about. It is avocado toast. I know. Where have I been? So initially, I'd never gotten onto this bandwagon of enjoying avocado, partly because we don't have fresh avocado here. I'm not from California, and I've never spent that much time in California, but I know that there's amazing avocados there. Granted, we're in Oregon, Shannon, so come on. But I just never ate that many of them until last year. I started eating them, and I fell in love with them. I put them in relishes that I make and different recipes that I enjoy now. But avocado toast, initially I was thinking, just an avocado and toast, that does not sound that great. Well, you probably could just do that because it would be very good. But here's what I do. I found this recipe a few years ago. It's been on my bulletin board for that amount of time, and I still haven't done anything with it until about 4 or 5 months ago. And I said to myself, why aren't you trying this out? It's so simple. So I did it. All you do. I only need, and this is just for one person, I just need a half of an avocado, not even that, probably a fourth for a slice of toast. I don't really measure this out, but this is what I would do. I put the specific measurements on the show notes, so for 2 people and 2 slices if you're curious. But for one person, I do a quarter of an avocado. I dice it up, so you dice it up in the shell or in the skin, and then you flip the skin inside out, and then you punch it out. And then I put in about a half a teaspoon of lemon juice, fresh lemon juice, a small little schmitz of salt, pepper if you'd like, and mash it up with a fork and put it on toast. It's that simple. It's so good. That lemon is an extra kick that is just lovely. And if you like a little bit of heat, you can add crushed red pepper flakes. Now, I'm not someone who likes a lot of heat typically, but if you do, that's a simple addition, and you don't need that much. Just a fourth of a teaspoon for 2 servings. So even less than that, an eighth if it's just for one person. So very simple. I eat this almost every morning with my breakfast on fresh artisan bread from our local baker. And it's crunchy and crispy, and that avocado goes nice and smooth on that warm toast. And it's just a nice complement to my steel oats and my 1 egg and my lemon water. So that's the recipe. It's all in the show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com podcast 208. And I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petite Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast, where I'll recommend a book, a film, or a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. All right, don't forget, the Ask Shannon episode is coming up on the 25th of June, so get me your questions by Tuesday, June 12th. I've already have quite a few, but this episode goes extra long, so please send them to me, and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a beautiful week. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up the book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide, now available in paperback as well as ebook and audio versions, which are available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. And to receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your weekend, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a morning cup of coffee. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée.